Welcome to Was It Good, a series inspired by the Did It Suck videos from Harry's Haunted House, where I analyse movies and episodes of shows in the pursuit of finding their merits and faults. The first show to be subjected to my wrath is Netflix's The Dragon Prince. Now, seeing as my last Dragon Prince video got a somewhat controversial reception, maybe starting with this show is not the best idea, but whatever. Let's review The Dragon Prince Episode 1, Echoes of Thunder. The show opens up to a Lord of the Rings style prologue which sets up the world and its story. We learn that the show is set in a mystical land called Xadia with 6 primal sources of magic. Elves and humans lived in harmony until supposedly humans discovered dark magic and everything went to chaos. We've now got humans on one side of a war, elves on the other, and the recent death of the dragon Thunder and his egg is the catalyst to this particular story. While this type of expository opening to a fantasy show is now somewhat of a cliche, I understand why they went with it. Much like its predecessor, Avatar: The Last Airbender, The Dragon Prince has a fair bit of world building that must be revealed for the story's primary conflict involving a particular dragon egg to make sense. The prologue is the most simple and convenient way of expressing the plot up to this point. Also, this prologue is narrated by none other than Erebos, a very mysterious elven character that is likely to be the main antagonist of the show later on. Spoilers, I suppose. This brings up the question, how much of this prologue is true? Why did the humans feel that they needed to harness dark magic? Were they suppressed? I don't have the answers, but I put money on this harmony that Erebos tells us is one big, fat lie. In terms of the aesthetics of the show, there are several stunning shots in this opening scene, and the use of colour especially is quite impressive. And in terms of the 3D models, which is the art style that the show uses, the characters do look relatively clean. With that being said, however, I have to address the somewhat painful frame rate issue. The folks over at Wonderstorm decided upon an artistic decision to have the frame rate super low in some scenes. This results in frequent stuttering and just jarring visuals that do not flow into each other at all. I will note that this is fixed in subsequent seasons, but it is an issue now, so it's got to be addressed. For me, it didn't ruin the show in any way, but it was annoying. Oh, and before we move on, the score for this scene is stunning, as are many of the background themes throughout the entire show, that has to be said. Now on to introducing the protagonist of the story. We get a nice shot of a castle in the rain before taken inside to meet brothers Callum and Ezran. Callum's drawing and Ezran's sleeping with his glow-toed bait. This is a neat scene because it introduces us to some of the main cast, but as a scene itself, it doesn't do much. All we know at this point is that Callum is an artistic young man and Ezran is a child that has a pet. I suppose the brothers' kindly dynamic is shown with their short interaction, but it doesn't give a strong basis as to who they actually are. After this though, we're introduced to the best character in the show, not my favourite, but the most well written, and that is Rayla. Now she fails to assassinate this particular guard, showing that she's either a morally grounded person or just really weak-willed. Spoilers, it's definitely the former. She is a great person inside, even if she does have a lot of conflict, internal conflict that is. The camera then moves up and we get a picturesque view of the castle. Inside the castle is this magey fellow. This is Viren. He's, complicated. We see him studying a very interesting mirror before getting a call from the same guard that Rayla let escape. I wonder what he told Viren. Well, what he told Viren becomes pretty obvious when we cut to Viren, who's the High Mage of the Kingdom by the way, talking to the king about the assassins, and it gets established that the attacking elves, Moonshadow elves to be precise, become nearly invincible on a full moon. And guess what the moon is for the coming night? I'll give you a clue. It's full. I really like this scene because we learn that Viren and Harrow have a very interesting dynamic that's been built upon from what I assume is decades, where Viren is obviously under Harrow status-wise, but they still have a very friend-like dynamic where they banter. At this point, you can tell that they are good friends, even if Viren does think himself the king's equal in some ways, but that's going to get him in trouble. Whilst they're talking, there's a beautiful shot of the dawn, and my favourite character, Amaya, gets a mention. Afterwards, there are two short scenes in quick succession where Rayla pretends to have killed the guard by covering her blade in berry juice, and Ezrin and Bates steal some jelly tarts. They're not hugely important, except to set up that Rayla tricks her comrades and Ezrin still has a very childish nature, despite, being the prince. Meanwhile, Callum and Soren are sparring, which Callum is not too enthusiastic about. It's revealed that Callum and Ezrin are only half-brothers due to some mockery from Soren, and this continues until Claudio shows up reading a book with a very familiar title. Callum has feelings for Claudia and calls out to her just before she collides with a tree. Afterwards, Callum tries to impress Claudia through a sword technique that Soren finds ridiculous, and we learn that Claudia is relatively kind-hearted when it comes to her attitude to Callum. It's one of my favourite scenes from this first episode because it does a pretty solid job of introducing the dynamic between the siblings and Callum. The episode proceeds to have the king inform Callum and Ezrin that they will be taking a sudden trip to the Bantha Lodge, despite it being spring, because the Bantha Lodge is for winter. Harrow tries to keep the conversation friendly, but Callum obviously knows that something's not right. Oh, and there's a Game of Thrones / Song of Ice and Fire reference hidden here too. Afterwards, Viren summons Claudia and Soren to a meeting where they discuss the king's forthcoming assassination attempt. Soren is to use a magic moon moth, yay for alliteration, to find the elves. Callum overhears their conversation. I'm not sure if he actually hears what they say, or if he just gets the gist of it, but later he tries unsuccessfully to accompany Soren in his quest, and after being rejected, snaps at the oblivious Ezrin for putting jelly tarts in his bag and states the terrible reason for their need to escape the castle. Ezrin then retreats into a passageway, obviously distressed. Outside the castle, the elves are preparing to perform their task. They take oaths, which include tying these magical bands around their wrists, which I can tell you now will only be undone if they complete their task. Rayla tries to warn Runan that the humans might know that they're coming without saying that she failed to kill the scout. Soren and his search party use a magical moon moth, but don't find the elves due to some quick thinking on Runan's part. After the humans leave though, it's apparent that Rayla's in a lot of strife from the line from Runan, "You've let him live, but you've killed us all." So, was it good? Absolutely. While not incredible, this first episode does set up its premise and the characters quite well. From this first episode, there is still so much we don't know about the world and the story and the characters and all that, but it's only 20 minutes into it. It's only really just one chapter from a book if you want to make that comparison, so that's fine. I think that some scenes could have done a better job of establishing exactly who these characters are in more than one way, similar to Avatar's opening with Katara and Sokka, but I digress. The frame rate is an issue and makes the show somewhat difficult to get into at first. However, the music is incredible and really pushes the show to an almost cinematic level. It reminds me a lot of The Legend of Korra and How to Train Your Dragon's soundtrack. The themes of xenophobia and the value of life are starting to get explored, as well as the smaller ones of loyalty and family, although they are just as important. If I had to sum up this first episode of The Dragon Prince, I would have to say potential. That's the word I would use. Potential. In this first episode, a lot of promising elements have been set up, and their payoff will determine the show's success or not. But for now, keeping in mind that 5 is an average score and 10 is just god level, episode 1 of The Dragon Prince gets a solid 6.5 out of 10. Hey, I hope you all enjoyed the video. I hope you're all staying safe and, with stuff going on at the moment around the world, and I hope you're all staying indoors, you're not sick yet, and you're keeping safe and all the rest of it. And I hope that this little video, this little insubstantial video, will put some sort of happiness in your day. Just a bit of escapism to come to in these trying and very uncertain times. But yeah, if you want to see more, make sure to like the video and subscribe, click the bell, all that. Just support me. I'm getting slowly larger, starting to get 300 subscribers, and we'll see. I normally do Zelda content, but I thought, well, I might want to do some Dragon Prince stuff, because Well, mainly because I love the Dragon Prince, and Dragon Prince stuff does well on my channel. Just look at all my most popular videos. They're nearly all Dragon Prince related, so hopefully this video does well. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. You're all amazing. I've been the Aussie Viking, and I'll see you all later. Farewell.